Okay, ladies, I have another amazing young lady that's going to join me today on the Purity is Precious podcast, and her name is Enid. Enid is going to be discussing the importance of overcoming mental incarceration. And what that means is we both have been through some traumatic instances in our lives that have caused us to shut down and to look at things from a victim mentality. But today we're going to be discussing the importance of overcoming that and also the importance of coming against and combating mental incarceration. I'll be back shortly with Ingrid. Hey, ladies, as stated, I have the beautiful Enid sitting before me. I'm super excited about everything that she's going to share with you and the wisdom that she's going to drop. I'm definitely one that feels comfortable in her presence, so I know for certainly you will feel the exact same way. So, without further ado, I'm going to welcome Enid. Enid, how are you today?
I am fabulous, sis. How are you?
All is well. All is well. Thank you for asking. I'm so glad that you came to be a part of the Purity is Precious podcast. I would like for you to tell us a little bit more about you.
Absolutely. So, my name is Enid, but my superhero name is EK Confidence, and that's what I do. I help women activate the inner superhero in them, and I help them expose thoughts, language, and habits that have encouraged limiting beliefs and often lead to self sabotage. Because once we can uncover those things, then they can become the superhero that God created them to be. And one of the ways I was able to overcome a lot of my own limiting beliefs was obviously through increasing my time with God, just praying and getting in my word. And as you can see behind me, those are essential oils. And I do a lot of meditating. Aromatherapy has been very vital in the change that's taken place in my life. So I just love to share knowledge and share information and just watch women transform. It's really beautiful.
I love it. I love it. I definitely saw you promote some of your essential oils online, and I was like, definitely. I think what was the one that forgiveness?
Yes. Yes.
I was like, forgiveness. What does that smell like? I definitely want to order that one because I saw it and I was like, I'm already in love with just the name, child. If it helped
Yes.
me to expedite through some hurt, some pain, really,
Yes.
just through some holistic healing, I'm for it.
It's we will talk later about that, but yes, I can certainly help you out, and it's all natural, so you don't have to feel bad about it. But yes, they can change your mind state like in an instant just by inhaling it.
Love it. Now, you mentioned something that stood out to me. You talked about helping women get past their limiting beliefs.
Yes.
And I think that that ties so well into our topic of being mentally incarcerated because what we don't realize is that what we think about ourselves actually hinders us more than what we believe that it does. Too often, we get into a place where we have these thoughts that constantly flow through our minds that we think is just a part of us, right? And they are negative thoughts. They could be thoughts that are negative. They could be thoughts that are telling us that we are not measuring up. It could be slanderous thoughts. It could be thoughts that something that someone else said and it plays in us somewhere along the lines. It got attached to our us into our subconscious state of mind, and when we hear them, we don't necessarily notice it because we think it's part of us, but that is actually us being mentally incarcerated by some words that were spoken in the past concerning us that's not true with who we are.
Yep.
So can we expound a little bit more on that? Like, how was your limiting beliefs and how was your mental incarceration, sabotaging you in ways that you were trying to move forward with your life?
The best place to start for me is in the beginning. And when I was a little girl, I loved to make people laugh. I was a goofball. And I was like, why was I so goofy and overly animated? Not just funny, but I was over the top. And I realized that as I, peeling back the onion, it's just there were these issues I had with being a dark skinned child. I grew up knowing that being dark skinned made me less than those that were lighter. And then you see this beautiful 4C hair. It wasn't always beautiful to me. And I was told things like, you have bad hair. I heard things like, you little black self, or your little black A word. It wasn't just, you couldn't just say something to me as Enid. It had to have the adjective of black in front of it. So I grew up feeling unattractive. I thought I was ugly up until a few years ago, and I'm 43 years old. And so I realized I grew up feeling like I will never truly be beautiful. I wore a lot of clothes and makeup, things that I felt like I had to wear in order to be noticed. I because I had such low self-esteem, I gave my body to guys in college that didn't like me, but it felt like love, because I just wanted that acceptance. And then because of the guilt, I started doing things like smoking a lot of weed and drinking a lot of liquor. And what I didn't prepare for were certain habits turned into an addiction.
Mm.
And when I drink, I care. I already don't have a filter. And when I drink, I really don't care what comes out of my mouth. And so now I'm being reckless with my tongue, and I'm got this air like, I don't care if you don't like me. So what? Who needs you? And now here I am older, and I need some of those people that I cut off. And some of the damage is stuff you can't come back from. But I thought that this was just going to be my life. I was miserable. I was addicted to smoking. I was addicted to drinking. I thought I couldn't have fun unless I was talking smack about people and cursing folks out, just being real ignorant, loud, and belligerent. And the thing about it is, you're never happy.
True.
You just stay in this cycle of, because once you get sober, now you got to deal with what's going on, and nobody wants to deal with the reality of life. So you stay inebriated, you stay high. And I remember praying one night. I was in the backyard smoking, and as I was smoking, I was praying to God, like, God, I do not want to think like this. I don't want to be this way. And as clear as day, I heard a voice say, don't don't be this way then. It's
Mm-hmm.
like, stop thinking like this. And you think like, okay, I just have to stop thinking. It's like, no, because now you got to put action, because like the faith is to not think it, but you got to put action behind it. You got to get in the word. You got to change your circle of friends, and that was, I feel like I'm saying a lot to answer your
Good.
question. But the point is, I kept myself, I really was mentally incarcerated. But what I needed God to help me realize was that I had the key
Mm-hmm.
to get out. Whereas I was waiting on Him to let me out. And the whole time it's like, just open your hand. And there was the key right there.
Exactly. I love that you just said that God wanted you to know that you had the key. Because one thing I know about God is that He is such a gentleman. He is such a gentleman. He is not going to force himself on us. He's
Yep.
not going to, make us do certain things. And that's what, the Bible states that we have freedom of choice. We have free will.
Yep.
And so a lot of times, we know that we have free will to do whatever it is we desire to do, but it's not going to be without consequence. That's for certain. And so even when you heard him say, well, then change it.
Mm-hmm.
Well, you can change the direction of your life or whatnot. That was just him allowing for you to know that we have what we need already inside of us. Because a
Yes.
lot of times we're looking externally for something or for people or whatnot, when everything that we really need is internally, because that's where God resides. He's within
Yes.
us, He's in us, He's around us. And I love the fact that He is indeed omnipresent, because there is nowhere or no place that we go where He's not. So
Yep.
He's always ready to answer the call or to help you, when you get into a hardship or into a certain situation. I can relate so much to, and you're beautiful, by the way. about the part about where you said being the dark skinned girl and always being told that you were ugly, because I shared it, that I was told I was ugly every single day while I was in eighth grade, seventh and eighth grade, all the way through all my years of high school. And I literally believed it because I wasn't just hearing it from one person or two people. It was both. It was the guys and the girls in my classes and things like that. And then I never got the attention from men. And so, or from, my peers to even have a boyfriend when other girls had them.
Yeah.
And so it ate at my self-esteem so much, to the fact that for me, I wanted to, marry a lighter skin complexion man, because I wanted to prevent my daughter from
Yes.
having to be my complexion or darker. And so in my mindset, I was like, we got to blend properly. So even though I don't think like that now, of course,
Mhm.
because I have grown and matured and gotten more comfortable in my own skin, for me, it was still the fact that I was afraid of my daughter having to walk down the path that
Yeah.
I went down, or having to experience anything close to it or similar. And so I'm grateful that there are women like you, Enid, that actually have embraced your beauty, and that has the 4C hair, and that allows for herself to be authentically you. Because too many times we're trying to be someone else, and
Mhm.
we neglect the fact on what it is that we are. Like, we are more than enough. And
Yes.
so, if we can start to program our minds to think like that and to understand that, and get rid of all of the crap internally that tells us opposite of what God says we are, then I think that that will set us on a path to be able to move into a place of complete oneness with self, and complete, acceptance of self. Because it's important that we learn how to accept ourselves, because if we don't accept ourselves, then we can't accept anyone else. If we
Mhm.
don't honor ourselves, then we won't be able to honor someone else.
That's
If
right.
we don't love ourselves, then we can't love someone else. We can't give what we don't have to give if we have
Right.
not first mastered it within oneself. And so let's talk a little bit about that. What was something that you had to master within yourself for you to be able to move forward past the addiction, so that you can, or if not, even if you move forward past the addiction, but help start to break the hold that the addiction have? Because we understand that when you're trying to heal from something, it is a step by step process, and
Yes.
we want instantaneous healings and
Yes.
deliverance. And it's not to say it can't never happen, because it do happen,
It does.
but for the most part, it's going to take work.
Yes.
So what was some of the steps that you had to take to even jumpstart you getting to this place?
Well, with the addiction, I kind of touched on it. I had to change my circle of influence. I literally had to cut a lot of people off cold turkey. And I felt really bad because I love the people that I hung out with and that I got high with and I got drunk with. I love those people as individuals. And a lot of times when you straighten up, instead of people being happy for you straightening up, it's almost like a mirror appears in front of them and they're like, it's almost like they think that I'm trying to say something is wrong with them because they're
Mhm.
not straightening up. And that's not it. And some people will say things like, oh, you think you're better than. And I would tell people, because I heard it more than once, like, I'm not trying to be better than you. I'm just trying to be better than the old me.
That's good.
And they didn't get it, and I had to be okay with that. I had to be okay walking away from certain people. And even now, they'll see me on Facebook and they'll put under my comments like, I miss you. And I miss them too, but I can't go see them. I can't go sit with them. The conversations are different. I'm not the same person. You know, I call my superhero is EK Confidence, but my villain is EK 47. And she is ratchet. She's not ignorant. She's ignorant. Like, she has no good sense. She is up to no good all the time. And everybody doesn't understand that. So I had to change my circle of friends. I had to get in my word. I had to speak life over myself constantly. It's a mental ping pong game when you are coming out of addiction and coming out of low self esteem, because you will look in the mirror and say, I am beautiful. And you will hear that voice say, no, you're ugly. You will say, I'm sober. And then you will think about smoke. It's almost like you'll say, I'm sober, and somebody will call you that you haven't talked to in forever. And my cousin was the weed man, and so he would call me up like, I have a sale going on, or I got some extra whatever, because all these different weeds have names now. So it's like, now you're giving it away. It's like the devil. It's think about walking down the street and you trying to stay on the path and stay on your feet, and the devil is just sitting off to the side throwing rocks and throwing sticks trying to get you to trip. And that's how it was. It is truly a fight. It's a fight. And I had to fight. And my kids, they are so aware that they knew what was going on with me. And that was another reason why I had to fight, because I didn't want them to think that I couldn't get past it. And so yeah, it was a struggle in the beginning. And I feel like I've won, but the devil still wants me. And so it's one of those things, like, I have to fight daily. I have to remember why I'm doing this. I have to constantly speak life over myself. And we know that we know that our purpose and our struggles are not just tied to us, that we have to overcome so we can help people that don't know they can overcome. I'm going to meet somebody who had the same struggle that doesn't realize that they have the key.
Right.
So, yeah, that's what I did.
That's so good. I love it. I love your transparency while talking about that, because one of the things that I noticed as you were speaking is that you didn't try to come off as if, oh, it was a breeze in the park, or
Mm-mm.
I have it together. Because a lot of times when people are struggling with certain levels of addiction, whether it's whether it's alcohol, drugs, sex addiction, anything like that, they don't want to show the parts of them that's actually struggling, because they are afraid of being judged. They are afraid of being um, blown off in regards to, I knew you would never survive this, so I knew that you would not be good enough, or I knew,
Yeah.
you have to deal with already those thoughts that's in your own mind that causes you to try to remain mentally incarcerated to your past. But then it's another thing when you have people that's sitting on the sidelines waiting for you to fail, waiting for you to slip,
Yes.
waiting for you to, not necessarily measure up to what it is, to the standard that you have already created for yourself.
Yep.
And so I think that it's very pivotal for people to understand that in order for us all to get to a place where we understand what's on the inside of us so that we can manifest that externally, we have to be okay with knowing that there's going to be struggles, and with knowing that there's going to be some form of resistance, because you're not going to ever get to a space where you're just always 100% peachy cream okay. There is always going to be some resistance somewhere, but I believe that the resistance is there to challenge you. The
Yes.
resistance is there to let you see what's really on the inside of you and what you're really made of,
Yes.
to endure and to overcome. And so when we're dealing with being in a space of trying to understand who we are, trying to be okay with the skin we're in, it can also bring up huge insecurities where we want to deflect how we feel onto others.
Yeah.
And so when we get to places like that, it's common for many women to try to find ways or things wrong with other women to make themselves feel more good about
Yeah.
themselves or feel more boastful, when the reality is that you're deflecting
Mm-hmm.
and you don't feel good about yourself. That's why you're trying to defame and tear down someone else's character or whatnot. And so, even with me personally, I've experienced something like that not too long ago, and still do, I'm sure, to an extent.
Mm-hmm.
But I don't pay it any attention, because I realized in my own personal life, I can either continue to rise above and continue to be, cordial and to show love, or I can come down to their level, and I have to actually show them exactly how a young lady carries themselves.
Right.
Like, we don't do bashing. We don't bash other women. We don't defame the value of other women. And I think that
Mhm.
that's something too that I want to talk about one day. We might touch on it a little bit here, but I really believe it's important for women to protect the value of other women, and that's
Yes.
something that we are lacking.
Yes.
So I think we can kind of go into that just briefly,
Mhm.
but let's talk about that part of how when we're fighting to get to a place within ourselves, how it's easy to try to deflect what we feel on the inside when we don't feel good about ourselves onto someone else. Can you, by, defaming or by bashing or talking or gossiping about, someone else. So
Yeah,
can you talk a little bit about that?
absolutely. It's for me and for a lot of women, it's really rooted in jealousy and envy.
Mm-hmm.
If you are not taught to give a compliment or to see the good and God in people,
Mm-hmm.
it's so easy to talk smack. One thing I have always noticed about women in my community, because I only know about my community, there's this thing where you walk in a room and you have to get looked up and down, you know. And it's just I figured out why, because I used to wonder, even though I did it. But when I got older and I just started asking God these questions, I realized why they're looking for the flaw.
Mm-hmm.
And I don't know if their mothers did it, the women around them, but it's this thing like, let me find the flaw. So if anything goes left, that's the first thing I'm gonna pull out and say about you. And I have always liked people, but once I felt like you crossed me, or you did something that I didn't like. And sometimes this could just be the way you said hello. Some people don't even, oh, I just don't like the way she talk. It's just now you've given me a reason when really they never gave you a reason. You just wanted a reason to be messy, to be nice, nasty, to let the devil in you out. And for me, it was just always rooted in jealousy. I was in church one day and we were talking about this very thing, and the pastor was like, if you have ever dishonored sisterhood with any woman, like, I challenge you right now.
Person.
Yeah. He's
Child, why they play us? Look.
He's like, I challenge you to walk up to that person right now and tell them the truth. And luckily for me, none of the women I had done that to were in my church. He's like, if they're not here, then pull out your phone and send them a text message.
Mm-hmm.
And so I pulled out my phone and I sent this woman a message. And I thought about it first. It's like, why did I dishonor her? And this particular woman was very confident,
Mm-hmm.
and she was loud, and she was just the life of the party everywhere she went. And I didn't like that about her. But why? Because
You the same.
I was the same way, but I shrunk it because
Uh-huh.
everywhere I went, people made me feel bad for it. And so I sent her a message because we weren't friends anymore. And I was like, you know what? I was very jealous of you. And I just want to say sorry. I did that actually with a lot of, I think I tried to hit everybody that I fell out with in my life. It's not a whole lot of people, but it's at least about 10. And I reached out to all of them and I apologized. And I'm sorry just wasn't enough. I had to say, like, I was jealous of you. I wanted what you had. And the craziest thing about it is that they were all nice and receptive because that's so abnormal. It's
Right.
not abnormal for people to apologize, but to hear somebody say, like, I was very jealous of you.
You put language to it.
Yeah. So they
That's
were,
big.
yeah, they were all like, it's so I forgive you. And I'm okay with us not being tight again, but it was just such a weight lift. It's like I don't have to carry that burden, that guilt anymore. It's like I did what I was supposed to do. I can go to God and be like, all right, God, I made it right. But yeah, that was hard. That was hard. And even now when I screw up, to have to call somebody and tell them, like, you know what, I really messed this up. That's it's not easy.
Humbling. It is very, very humbling. And
Yeah.
I think that um because we have such an image in our head of trying to always be the strong one,
Yeah.
or trying to always be someone that's mostly like coming off as if we got it all together, it's
Mhm.
hard for us to really, move in that direction, or it's hard for us to really want people to see the softer side of us because we're afraid that if we express that, then we'll be taken advantage of, or we'll
Yeah.
be looked at as like we're soft or something of that nature.
Yep.
And so I do think that that's very key for us or whatnot in regards to moving forward. We have to be okay with being humble to actually say, I think I'm jealous of you, or this has happened or whatnot, because I would do that too. But I would do it to my other friends, and I'm like, I don't know why I feel this way about such and such. I'm like, I think I'm jealous of her, and my friends would laugh at me, and they'd be like, girl, you is not jealous. I'm like, nah, for real. I think I am. They're like, no, you're not. But they felt that I was not jealous because I verbally confessed it. But
Right.
they felt like, who actually would say that they're
Right.
actually jealous
Right.
of someone? And but I knew what I was feeling inside, and I was just bold enough to say it. I just wasn't
Yeah.
saying it to that person.
Yeah.
So you up the ante when you actually, message those people and let them know, like, hey, this is how I feel. I'm sorry that I did X, Y, and Z, but it was because of this, then, that.
Yeah.
And by putting language to it, you validated that individual to know that maybe how they probably was never even considered you to be jealous, because you probably came off as always confident in your own, right, or whatever.
Yeah.
And so it could be like an eye opener to them, like, wait a minute, she was jealous of me? Why? So that softens the heart of anybody. I don't think people take it and be like, I knew it. She should be. Should be.
Right.
They don't, we don't come like real mature women don't come off like that. We like, but why? Like, do you see my life? This falling apart, this falling apart, that ain't going right, this ain't going right. So why are you jealous of me? It's
Yeah.
so many women that feel that way, because I've had someone say that to me as well. Like, I was jealous of you about this and then that. And I'm sitting up there looking like, girl, if you know the crap I go through behind closed doors, you would not be jealous of me.
Yes.
And I would say that to people. I would be like, I look good. I would call, like, if I was crying about something or going through a hardship or whatever, and I was expressed to like my close friends, I was like, people don't see that I'm going through this, and that. And they'll be like, well, why do you feel that way? I said, because they think that because I have A, B, C, D, E, F, G, that all is well. And I would say, I look good on paper, but internally I'm not okay. There's two totally different things when you're looking good on paper, because you got the degrees, you got the credentials, you got a good job, you can travel the world and everything like that. But when
Mhm.
you're not okay internally, none of that matters. None of it
Nope.
does. And so let's talk about, healing and trying to work towards things internally. Like, how do you bring attention to a certain area in your life? Like, what are some steps that you would take to bring attention to a certain area in your life that you know that God needs to heal? And I can give an example if you need me to, of something
Yeah,
with
give me
you.
an example.
Okay. So for me, I can tell when I'm in a space where I'm like, not pleased with where I am with life. And anytime when I'm not
Okay.
pleased with where I am with life, it's simply because of the fact I have not resolved my purpose. It's simply because I'm trying to
Mhm.
operate out of my sphere of influence or out of my purpose, or I'm
Yep.
not thrilled with the purpose that God gave me. So I would rather do something more simple or do something more,
Yeah.
just that seems to be more fun to me. Like, my thing was, I wanted to be a professional dancer that traveled the world with an elite dance company. And since that was always my big overall dream, I never got that opportunity to actually do that. And so, but God called me to do purity, from emotionally, mentally, as well as sexually. And I'm like, who wanted to deal with that all day, every day, when I could be twirling on the stage? But anytime when I hit those places in my life where I'm not in a good space emotionally, and it's mainly because I have not settled my call with my purpose, or I'm back at a space where I'm trying to resist or fight against it. And so it takes for
Mhm.
me to actually know exactly what the root cause is, go and still away, which means I'll go and spend time with God. I'll put on some instrumental music, get in my room, and just sit still and actually have the conversation with God, and just saying what it is that I feel. I say it outwardly out loud so that I can hear it, and I know God hears it, but I just voice it just to get it out from inside of me in regards to like where I am in that particular space. And I let the tears come, I let the frustrations come, everything. I allow for myself to sit in those emotions and to feel it, because it's necessary for me to actually allow myself to process what it is that I think, what it is that I feel, and what it is that I'm not, in agreement with at that particular time. So one of the things that I notice
Mm,
is that when I do that, that allows me to surrender to God. And I verbally say that.
mhm.
I'm like, God, I surrender my future to you. I surrender my past to you. I surrender anything that has the potential to sabotage my future. I align myself with your will and with your purpose for my life. Like I start to have this conversation out loud with him after I first announce what it is that I'm sensing internally and what it is that I feel. And then I follow suit back up with letting God know exactly what I'm going to allow for myself to become. I become one with his purpose, one with his promises, one with
Right.
his views with me. And so that's how I kind of navigate. I take time to allow for myself to sit in the emotions, feel what's going on, and then I identify what the main source is. And then I go into a place of actually allowing myself to sit and process and then surrender it to God. So, what would be some?
That is amazing. And I need you to text me that when we are done. I need those phrases because I'm in the same spot. I'm
Hmm.
glad you clarified that question too. So I it's so funny. It's like before I realized my purpose, I don't really know what I thought my dream was. I think my dream, and this is gonna sound really bad, but I think my dream was to just work a job, retire, to be ordinary, to work a job, retire, and then um do whatever until I wasn't around anymore. But now that I know what my purpose is, which is to speak, most of the time I'm okay with it. But sometimes it's terrifying because I'll think he wants me to do one thing. And once I conquer that thing, he'll reveal a whole new thing like, okay, now take what you just learned and move it over here. And to answer your question, what do I do? I That's why my circle is so important because my circle is helping me stay encouraged. Um they really are because like I said, I don't know if you know this, but speaking is the number one fear of people in front of death. And that's what God has called me to do.
Uh-huh.
And it's just like, Lord, this is scary, but it's necessary. I have something that he wants me to say. So I tap into my circle, and the another thing about my circle is they don't participate in pity parties. It's kind of like snap out of it. I love that about my sister circle. But yeah, and it's forced me to get back into my word. Now the meditation piece is what I need to work on
Okay.
because I meditate. Everybody does. The question is, what are you meditating on? Because all meditation is mulling over things in your head. Are you meditating the things of God or are you not? And so I'm working on that focus piece. That's why I love my word for the year is surrender.
Hmm.
But the funny thing is, a couple of weeks ago, God was like, okay, we're going to throw obedience in there too. So it's not just surrender. Now it's obedience. So
Yeah,
it's, it's a daily conversion. This is not a cakewalk.
not at all.
And I think that's what people need to realize. It's like we all have purpose, we all have a plan that God has for us. But what we need to realize is if we don't walk in our purpose, it's not that our purpose won't be fulfilled, it's just that somebody else is going to fulfill it. And I don't want to be that person watching somebody else walk in my purpose.
Exactly.
So, yeah.
Exactly. And one of the things that, and this could probably help you a little bit too, because I think that when you're in a place, because like you were saying, you need to get the meditation part and actually know how to fully, evolve in that particular area. We have to be mindful that when we are sitting still, say for example, and we're allowing God to minister to us, whether I don't know if you like use instrumental music or anything like that, but when we're in a space where we're trying to actually, allow God to heal something in us, A lot of times our mind would wander to something.
Yes.
And you have to be mindful that when your mind wanders to something, it's not necessarily a distraction. A lot of times our mind wanders to something, and that's God revealing something in your life that He wants to heal. And
Mhm.
so I've had moments like that where, and this actually just happened maybe about a few days ago in my quiet time with God. And I was talking to God about something or whatever, because in my mind wandered to a certain relationship with a certain person. And I thought that I had forgiven and surrendered and let it go, right? And I'm like, God, why is this person steady coming up? Like, what is it about this person? I'm trying to move forward in the whole nine. But the interesting thing was that sure I have forgiven, and sure I thought I let it go, but I still may have internal grief concerning the experience with the person.
Mhm.
And so you can't move forward if there is still some form of regret and some
Yeah.
form of anger or internal unrest that is potentially causing you not to be able to move forward into the fullness of what God has for you, because those things will sabotage or not allow for you to fully invest yourself
Mhm.
into certain relationships and into certain friendships. Just the other day, I sat down and I thought about it. And I said, I realized because I've been burned in friendships so bad, I don't do friendships the same no more. And
Mhm.
I noticed that, and as I was talking, as I identified that, then all of a sudden, when I had my quiet time, my mind went back to the person that I felt that I was burned by. That
Okay.
was the deepest, for me. And as I went through that, I was like, well, I thought I forgave. I thought I moved on. Why are we still back here? But it was like, you've done it to an extent, because some, healing and deliverance comes in portions and
Yes.
it comes in segments. So, a lot of times we can only go so far because that's what we are allowed to do in that particular time and space based upon our own maturity level.
Mhm.
And so as you begin to grow and develop more, then you get to a place where you can go deeper into that next phase of healing and
Mhm.
deeper until the complete incident is totally resolved and there is no residue or whatnot. And so I want you to realize that, and that's just like just in general, is that anytime when you're in a moment and something comes up, whether it was a traumatic experience, whether it was a flashback from something in your past that you cringe to think at or think about or be reminded of, it's not that your mind is wandering to play tricks on you or your mind won't stay focused in that moment. A lot of times it's simply that God is trying to bring some attention to that particular area because He's ready to heal
I like that a lot.
it.
That's good. I'm gonna think about that next time. I'm gonna think about that later today. I got meditate.
Yeah, one of the things that I notice is that God does healing and deliverance in different phases. And
Mhm.
so also, and this is one for the house. Look. But be mindful that when you're in a space to be healed, because we're in reason why I'm really hitting on this because we are talking about mental incarceration. Be mindful that when you're in a space to be healed, God will switch up His methods of healing.
Mhm.
It does not always have to be, healing, whereas, like how I was showing, like how I just specified, like, he'll give you a thought or something like that or whatever. And then all of a sudden, that that's a pain because you can
Mhm.
feel when it's a deep pain for you if
Yeah.
you allow yourself to go to that space. It can come like that. It could be a healing through a conversation that you have with someone else that may even where they actually bring something up that you might have tried to forget or whatever in the past or whatnot. And here's a real life example. And I was talking to someone and I was holding a conversation with them. Now, I didn't know this person's past at all. And it was a FaceTime. So I'm close to this person and she's like about 40ish, like 45, almost 50 years old. And she was on FaceTime with her daughter. And as she was FaceTiming her daughter was getting ready to get married. And we was like, so you gonna have two more babies or whatever? And so we just laughing and joking around, like, and her daughter already has like two kids. She's like, no, I can't do no more kids. I don't want no more kids. I'm good. And we was like going back and forth. And I just so happened to say, it could be just like the prophetic in me a little bit, but I so happened to say, I said, such and such, you got to have two more kids because your mama had two. She didn't let come through. Can you imagine that? Didn't know her mother's background, didn't know her mother's history, didn't have anything. And when I said that,
Wow.
it went over the daughter's head. Like the daughter didn't act like she caught what I said. She was like, I ain't have no more kids. I can't do it no more. Like that's what the daughter was still saying.
Right.
But the mother sat there while her daughter was on FaceTime and she looked at me and she said, that's true, in a low voice.
Wow.
And when she and I'm still talking to the daughter, and I heard the mother, but I didn't catch it at that moment. And then she looked up at me again. She said, "That's true." So instantly, she acknowledged that there were two abortions, and it wasn't that I knew it. I
Right.
just slipped up and just said something, but it
You weren't
wasn't
even
me.
thinking about it.
Exactly, and I definitely
Wow.
wouldn't have said nothing like that for that to be, that could be very offensive.
Yeah.
But it was what God had it to say, had said that through me so that the mother can know that it's time to heal that spot. Because I'm
Right.
quite sure that there has always been some form of a healing of an internal grievance,
Yeah.
because like women go through after they have abortions, they have those regrets and things
Yeah.
like that. And so when that happened or whatever, I realized that all of a sudden God revealed something to her, to that particular woman, so that he can prepare to heal it. And
Wow.
I mentioned that to her at a later time. I said, when that had occurred, that I didn't really mean, and she was like, oh no, I knew that. I know that you're very prophetic. And I was like, yeah, I don't try to bounce around with that too much. I'm trying to downplay, the abilities or whatever. She said, but no, I know. And I said, well, he revealed that so that he can get ready to heal that. Like that's something that he's calling for you to surrender fully to him.
That's so beautiful.
And she was like, I'm working on that. Ever since that happened, I realized that that was something that I had really been struggling with in silence. And so when I said that God used different ways, you can't be so easily to be offended
Yeah.
just in case something is said, because a lot of times God will use different methods and different avenues to bring a source of healing to you or to bring awareness to it. So it can be he gives you a thought. It could be that he used someone such as like what I did similar to that or whatever. And it could be, through prophetic prophecy, or it can be, through somebody that you come into contact with on the street or whatnot, or it can be via a dream. You could dream something. So there are different ways that God speaks. We just have to be open to knowing which way what he's saying, and then also being okay with getting to the place of actually allowing it to be healed and not resist or fight against it.
You said a lot, sis. I'm so happy for that woman. That's beautiful. That's beautiful.
Absolutely. And I'm happy that, it wasn't taken up out of context. So
Yeah.
when God does it, let's say it like that, when God does it, he doesn't do it in a space where it would, tarnish my character or my reputation.
Right.
It's going to always land softly, and it's going to land in a way where it resonates with the person, but it also gets the job done in regards to what that person needs to do.
Exactly.
Mhm.
Exactly. That's why I love him. He's so strategic.
Exactly. I agree with that. I agree with that. So, in regards to being mentally incarcerated, and we already done talked about, how we could project how we feel internally onto others by
Yeah.
trying to find things that's wrong with them or whatnot. Let's talk a little bit about how can we better ourselves when we feel those feelings rising up internally, and how, before we get ready to throw the dagger at somebody, what can we do to prevent that? Do we just immediately call ourselves into check? How do we know what we're getting ready to do to reprogram our actions and our responses?
Well, the good thing about our bodies is it tells us when something is wrong.
Hmm.
So if I feel anxious or angry or bitter, I know that none of that is of God. And I don't know what Bible study I was in one day, but I heard the Bible teacher say, if God is not your dad, then who is your dad? So I always hear that. I tell that to my kids, like, who is your daddy right now? Because this is not like God is not your daddy in this moment. And I can't hold them to that standard and not hold myself to it. And so I'm speaking purely to the person that believes in God. You know, I can't talk about what other people do that don't have the same belief. But I put that mirror, I always go back to the mirror analogy. And I feel like our hands are mirrors. And so it's like before I'm about to say something, I'll check myself immediately, like you said. And if the words come out, I reverse it immediately. It's almost like I'll let it out and I will, you know what, God, I cancel that in the name of Jesus. It's like, God, I reverse that. When you're first going through these changes, you sound crazy. And I have to throw that out there because I felt crazy. And I think my oldest two, they probably thought I was crazy for a 2 year time period in their life. If I felt myself about to say something that needed to be said, but I was going to say it the EK-47 way, I would put a smile on my face
Mhm.
because it's hard to be mean or evil or spiteful or nasty when you are smiling unless you're truly maniacal, and I'm not. So I would put a smile on my face. Sometimes you have to remove yourself from the situation, and that's easy to explain. If you have to get up and walk away from somebody or something because you're about to be nasty, it's easy to come back and be like, sorry, I got up and left abruptly, but I had to do that because I wanted to keep the God in me and
Mhm.
not let the enemy out. So these things that we're talking about, these, I feel like there's no easy fix. There's
Mhm.
no easy way to do these things. When those feelings come up, I have to remember who I am, whose I am. I have to remember what the word says. And if I don't remember what the word says, then that means I'm not in the word enough. So I'm pretty good at finding scriptures I need to carry me through a bad situation. And if I'm going through something and I don't have the scripture, I have enough friends that do, that I can text and be like, sis, I need a word. Can you give me a scripture? Can you send me something to help me get through this? And it always works. And that's, so we talk about circle of influence. I was telling a friend the other day, when you have faith in God and when you're a believer, that heightens the level of your circle of influence because now I'm surrounded by believers. I can fall at any given moment and somebody is going to grab my hand and pull me up. And that's why that is so important. Your belief system is so important. You have to stay plugged into the source. When I'm not plugged in, my life is like a tailspin. And one thing, it's like a domino effect. One thing bad happens right after the other. And so many people are like, why me? Why is this happening? And it's like, because you're not plugged in, sis. All you gotta do is pick the cord up and plug it back in. You know, we
Right.
act like it's so hard. And it's so much easier than we make it out to be. It's
I agree.
not
You
hard to
have
be right.
to get your mind together to put in the work.
Yes.
And I think that that's where people, stop at or get stagnant at when you really think about what it's going to entail and what it's going to take from you to put in the type of dedication and the work to achieve the right results in regards to your healing mentally, emotionally, and physically.
Yep.
And people don't want to do that. But what we fail to realize is that the longer that we sit in a space of brokenness, it only gets deeper. It doesn't, it's more time. We could have been a move forward quicker if we just put in the time frame. So, like, the longer you stay, the deeper the hurts get, the deeper the wounds get, the deeper, the unrest internally gets. But when we
Yeah.
actually make a decision that I'm done being this person that may be the victim or has a victim mentality, and I'm choosing to take my life back and to move in the right direction of internal and mental and emotional wholeness, then you allow for yourself to, journey upon the place that God originally intended for you to be upon, because now you're clearing out the blockages, the bondages, and all the other space that would have hindered you in the
Yep.
first place.
Yep.
But one of the things that I personally love to do is I do make sure that I surrender my day to God, and I make sure that I surrender my morning. So in the morning time, even if it's just me in my car driving to work or whatever it is, I let God know that he has control of my day. So I would say something like, God, I surrender my day to you. I surrender my brand to you. I surrender purity is precious to you. I surrender my book to you because I'm writing a book. I surrender those different things to him, right? And I even surrender my relationships, my friendships. I surrender um, my voice to you, my tongue to you, so that I'm giving God complete control. So that if I notice that I'm trying to say something, or if I'm going to say something, I remember that I actually gave God control of that. And I notice that anytime when I do that, I'm not as easily to want to speak negatively in regards to something. Like, and I don't surround myself around much of the negative and the gossip talk or
Right.
whatnot. Because the other day, I was with some people and they were saying things about what this person doing, this person doing, this person doing. And I'm like, I don't even know these people. Like, and then part of me felt like I was like, I am so out of the loop because the old me would have knew all the gossip, would have knew what everybody was doing, the shady stuff behind the scenes. And I'm like, I don't know who y'all talking about. Neither do I really care. But it's just so interesting, like when you can actually measure your growth or whatever to where
Yes.
you are. Because now I'm more preoccupied with building the brand. Purity is precious. I'm more preoccupied with what it is that God called me to do, to the fact that I don't have the time to micromanage everybody else's life, and neither do I care. There's enough going on right here.
Yes.
And so, when you get to a place where you're more whole internally and you
Hmm.
know exactly what you're called to do and what you're here for, and even if you don't know what you're called to do, you have a sense of direction. You know
Yes.
that you're, allowing for God to share his thoughts with you and share his heart with you. It gives you that open door and that open space to be able to focus solely on you so that you reach a place of that you begin to arrive to your space of purpose. And
Hmm.
that's what it is. We are constantly in pursuit and constantly trying to arrive to a place of purpose. But in order to do that, we have to take down the mental bondages and the mental roadblocks that we've created, that our past created, that the traumas created. And we have to get past those things so that we can reach a place where we are quick to forgive, quick to love, quick to, bless, and whatever it is that else that would, breathe life into those that we come into contact with.
Yeah.
So, but we done said enough, girlfriend.
A whole lot.
Yes, this was pretty good. And I want to thank you because I really enjoyed this conversation with you, with being on the Purity is Precious podcast. You definitely dropped some good revelation, and I loved every bit of it. I loved how you went through your journey and how you came out on top. And it's so pivotal because since you did it, I know a lot of other women could do it as well,
Yeah.
and they're going to be inspired to do it. So thank you for creating a safe space, with your story, with your truth, for other women to be able to pull and to learn more about it, about you and about your story. So before we go, do you have any last minute thoughts that you want to share?
I just want to thank you for having me. I think that this podcast is going to bless people, but it's going to free a lot of people. A lot of women don't know they are safe to have these kind of conversations, and they don't know that the younger generations coming up need to see us having these kind of conversations. The My church gave me the confidence to speak like this, but every church is not doing this. And this is what the world needs to see, because all of us are screwed up at some point to some level. And people need to know that, hey, you know what? I was a mess and it's okay because I'm okay now. And my mess can help. There's so many people who don't know that they're not alone. That was the biggest revelation. So God bless you. God bless this podcast. I wish you abundant success, and I just want to thank you. Yeah, thank you for having me. This was awesome.
Oh, thank you. I definitely appreciate it. I love it too, because I can't do it without wonderful women like you coming on board. That's for certain.
Thank you.
And being open. So thank you so much for your transparency and your vulnerability. So
Absolutely.
before we go, did you want to tell us anything about your business that you have or
Sure. I can be found on Instagram at EK Confidence. There you will find information about the Your Confidence Reconnected podcast. You can find out information about the essential oils that I sell and all the other cool things that I'm doing. You just go to Instagram, EK Confidence. That's
got
about
you?
it.
Well, thank you so much, Enid, for being a
Of
part of the
course.
Purity is Precious podcast. You know that you always have a seat at this table. I am super ecstatic that you joined us, and I definitely are honored that we had you today. So thank you so much, and I hope that you have a great day.
Absolutely. You too, sis. Talk soon.
Thank you.